Discovery 65, the award-winning program for young people with Frank Buxton. Today, the Desert People. Discovery visits the Papagos.
This is Pima County, Arizona. A part of it, 20 tough miles off what serves as the only road between Tucson and Ajo. The Comobabi Mountains behind me, the saguaro cactus all around, the sandy, useless soil underneath. Who could make a life on it? Well, they have. This is the Papago Indian village of Silnakia, population 52. It doesn't seem that anyone could live in this country, and yet they do and have done for longer than our history has any way of telling us. A Jesuit missionary, Father Kino, came here in 1694, and Silnakia was one of the villages he saw. There are 14 families here, somewhat interlocked with brothers-in-law and stepsisters and grandfathers living side by side. This is Frank Lopez, the ceremonial leader of the village. Here's Angelo McGill and his two boys. John is 11 and Clement is 12. The McGill family is one of the oldest families in the village. If the members of a Papago family aren't actually related to their neighbors, they at least know them extremely well. The life they live is very communal. They do everything together. It has to be. It's clearly one of the ways that the tribe is kept alive. There's a tribal herd of cattle, since cattle raising is the major occupation. And the Papagos have the only all-Indian credit union in the country. Angelo Miguel makes his living driving the school bus. How about your boys, John and Clement? What do you want to be when you grow up? Clement?
A welder.
A welder? Uh-huh. John?
Mechanic.
You want to be a mechanic when you grow up. I know that another important industry of the Papago women, I know they're famous for it, is the basket weaving, and there's some going on in the house right now. But before we go in, I've always been interested in the construction of these adobe houses. What are they made of, precisely?
Earth.
The earth, yes.
Make it in mud mixed with desert grass and put out to dry. Make them into bricks. They have a form in making bricks. Put out to dry. It'll take about 4 or 5 days to dry, and then they're ready to stack, and then they use them when they are ready to build.
In other words, you take exactly what you have right here, the earth and the grass and the rocks, and you put them together with water and make a brick, and it's a very sturdy construction too, isn't it?
That's
How long
right.
does an adobe house last?
Well, I would say about 60 years.
About 60 years. That is substantial, isn't it? How about the roof? What is the roof made of?
It's made of saguaro ribs, desert grass, dirt top.
Saguaro ribs, desert grass, and the dirt. The saguaro ribs must come from the saguaro cactus, then.
That's right.
Is that one leaning up against the house over there? That
Yeah.
big thing? Would you get that for me, Clement? I'd like to see it. It seems strange to think of cactus as having wood inside it, but they do, don't they? This is some of it. Very hard, very heavy, too, isn't it? Yes. How do you get this out of the cactus?
Or when the cactus dries up, when it dies, it dries up, and the outside falls off. That's when it comes out, and that's when they gather it up.
And you use this on the roof?
That's right.
Good, that's a very good, sturdy, substantial house. I'd like to go inside, too, and see the basket weaving, if we may. May we go in?
All right.
These ladies are at work on a the women of the tribe were producing in the days of Father Kino. That's Mrs. McGill in the center, Angelo's wife and John and Clement's mother. Just as the Navajos are celebrated for their rugs and the Zunis for their silver, so the Papagos are famous for their basket weaving. In the old days, when the tribe was nomadic and roamed the countryside with the cattle, these baskets were made to carry water. Angelo, what materials are the ladies using?
Yucca, devil's claw, and bear grass.
Yucca, devil's claw, and bear grass. They look very fresh and green. Are they newly cut?
Yes.
Do you add any colors to these materials?
No.
All natural colors, the green and the white and the black. In those forgotten wandering days of stream beds and water holes, the white in these baskets was willow. Now it's yucca. And since willow swells when moist and yucca doesn't, the weaving isn't waterproof anymore. The work is somewhat vestigial, like your appendix and your little toe. One long evolutionary day it may be gone. Now the weaving is done largely as a craft, encouraged with effort by people who know its value. It's rare in this world of oven wrap and no deposit bottling to find something made by man for his own use, made of the beautiful things around him, made with a little of himself mixed in. But you don't make much money on baskets. And even cattle raising is done on a modest scale. They don't have much money, and it doesn't look as if they're going to get any from that strange, unexpected source that has suddenly brought tremendous wealth to other tribes, like oil, uranium, and real estate. But they get along. The Papago language has never been written down, but they have 2 words in their language that describe them better than any 20 words in English. Tohono Oodham, which means the desert people. There are some 70 villages similar to this one here in the Sells Papago Reservation. Some of them have electricity, some of them have water. A handful have both, and many have neither. Silnakia has water, but no power except for 1 generator. Now, while the parents are hard at work at their crafts, the children go to school, just as you do. Their school is 12 miles down a dirt road. But today, the class is meeting here in Silnakia, because the class has been on a nature study trip, a field trip out in the desert, and they've returned here for the rest of their class. And we'll be seeing that class in action in just a minute. "12 bumpy miles from here, there's a school called the Santa Rosa Ranch School. All the classes are taught in one room, but it is well equipped and new. There are 33 children studying in 7 grades, but only 1 single teacher, Mr. Philip Premy, who is conducting the nature study class over there right now. We visited the school a few days ago and took some film to show you. The school has only been built 1 year. Before that, there was only an old barracks heated by a pot-bellied stove burning dried mesquite. Now there's a modern well-lit classroom. The children work on projects and subjects, and the older ones help the small ones. The pride of the Santa Rosa Ranch School is the cafeteria. Here the children have a balanced meal, carefully architectured to correct some of the flaws of the standard Papago diet, which is Mexican: beans, tacos, enchiladas, and therefore too starchy. The cook and major domo is Matilda Carrillo, Angelo Miguel's married sister. Papago families speak their own language in their houses, so when these children come to school, they learn and speak English for the first time. This is particularly hard on the teacher because every subject that they teaches necessarily becomes also a class in English. But if the teacher is dedicated and energetic, if he cares, things could be a great deal worse. And Philip Premy is a teacher who likes his work and his life. Right now, the nature study class has returned from the desert, and Hal Gross of the Desert Ark of the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum has brought some animals that are conditioned to handling.
Well, that's how he gets his name. He's a gopher snake, and he's called, my goodness, he's called a gopher snake because he eats what? All right, now do you want to touch him? Yeah. Marlene, would you like to touch the snake? Go, oh, come on, you girls over here. And how about those fellas? You reach out and touch the snake. Okay, but you remember, when you see these snakes out in the desert, you should leave them what? Alone. Right. Okay, can one of the students write snake on the
Which one
blackboard?
can write snake? Oh, Louise, come here and write the word snake, and then... Stand back then, honey. Stand back and... Is that right, class? Yes. How do you say snake again in Papago? Wamat. Thank you.
Okay, now how about this animal? This is a dog, isn't it? But it's a wild dog. What kind of a wild dog is this? How do you say that in Papago? Oh, I can't hear you. Do I pronounce it correctly? Fawn? Okay, and do you know what the coyote eats? The coyote eats anything that won't eat him first. That's right, they're an omnivorous animal, and they eat just about anything. They take care of cleaning up the desert. They clean up all the dead animals, and they're a very important animal. Now, who would want to touch the coyote? Oh, everybody wants to touch the coyote. Okay, let's see. Here you are.
Honey,
There.
could you go over there, please, huh?
Okay, now once again, how do you say coyote in Papago? And who's going to write the name on the blackboard?
Esther, yes, you come up here and write the word coyote. Trace that. That's the girl. Now step aside and we'll see if they can. Do you see that word? Is that right? Did she spell it right? How do you say coyote in Papago again? Bond. Very good, very good.
Well, thank you, students, and thank you, Mr. Premi. I learned something here today, too.
It was very nice having you here, Mr. Gross.
Al, may I join the class for a minute?
Yes, good.
Nice.
Go right ahead.
How'd you like seeing all those animals? Was that fun? Huh? The javelina and the gopher snake and the coyote? You know, I carry an animal in my pocket everywhere I go, all over the world. I have a little animal that I carry in my pocket. Can you figure out what it is? A rabbit? No, as a matter of fact, it's a handkerchief. It's a new kind of animal. But let me show you what I can make with this handkerchief. I can make, well, I could make a rabbit, sure. But I think this time I'll make a little mouse out of this rabbit. Out of this handkerchief, rather. You watch. All I have to do is fold it up that way, do like this, and do like this, and turn it around inside out. And when you get home tonight from this nature study trip, you get your handkerchief and you see if you can make one too, huh? All you have to do is remember all these moves. That's all you have to do. Now watch. Turn it around like this, and I'll take this part out. What does that look like? Like an ear? It does look like an ear, doesn't it? But let's make it the tail, okay? Now, we'll pull this part out. We'll make this part the head. There's the tail, there's the body, and we'll make this the head. You watch. Now, I'll make a little mouse ears on this one. Here we go. Just tie one knot in. When you get everything folded this way, all you have to do is tie one knot in the head. It's really very simple, isn't it? Let's see if I can find that little mouse ear. There it is. Oops, almost. There. There are two little ears. And there's a little head there. And there's a body. And there's a tail. A little mouse out of a handkerchief. You think he's alive? Let's see. All you have to do is pet him to find out. You just, oh, like that. You just have to go like this, see? And he, oh, and he moves like, oh. You want to try petting him? Go ahead. He's going to get away. He's getting away under the log. Oh, you want to try it again? There you go. Just give him a little mouse out of a handkerchief. And this one I carry all over the world. Everywhere I go, I carry my little mouse handkerchief. You know, he was trying to tell me something there. Hal was talking about all the things that all the desert animals eat. And I am getting hungry after hearing all that talk about food. And I know that the ladies here in Silnakia have prepared supper for us. So we're going to be having supper here with the Papago Indian ladies in Silnakia in just a minute. It's nighttime now in Silnakia, and as I mentioned before, a great deal of the activity here is communal. It's done together. And on special occasions, even the cooking and the eating is done together. Each family brings a portion of their food to this open-air kitchen. They put it together and make a big festive feast for all the residents of the village. The roof of this open-air kitchen consists of saguaro ribs, just like the saguaro ribs we saw in the construction of the adobe house. That roof is called a ramada. This is Mrs. Luciana. She is the aunt of Angelo Miguel. And what is on the menu for tonight? What are we going to have for supper?
We had chili con carne, stew, beans, and plain meat.
Could I sample a little bit ahead of time before supper? Good, thank you. I see the bean pot is right here. Very good, hot too. I see the stew there and chili con carne. What's down there on the end?
Plain meat.
Plain meat? Oh, I'll try some of that. And there's a big pot of coffee there. I noticed this afternoon that you were baking bread on your open hearth ovens out in the back. Could I sample some of that too, please? Thank you. That's good. Home-baked bread. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the supper that I'm going to have later on. Thank you, Mrs. Luciano. I mentioned before that Silnakia society is very tightly knit, family to family and generation to generation. I also mentioned that the language hasn't been written down. Well, if they have no alphabet for their tongue, then there can be no documentation of their history. Not at least in our terms. But then again, maybe books aren't everything. This is John and Clement's grandfather, Warren McGill, one of the elders of the village. He's holding in his hand the only recorded history of Silnakia. It's called a calendar stick. It's a saguaro rib with notches cut in it to represent every year since 1844. Between those notches are carvings representing a major event of the year. Now, even this calendar stick is not enough. The story itself must be told, must be handed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. Right now, Mr. McGill is telling his grandsons the story of a great Indian battle between the Papagos and the Apaches that happened in 1881, not very far from here. Mr. McGill serves a dual function here in Silnakia. He's also the fiddler for the town dances, the community dances, which take place from time to time. There's one about to start right now. That slab of concrete serves as the Silnakia Social Hall and Ladies' Sodality. And if it doesn't rain, who cares if the YM and YW doesn't have walls or a ceiling? Tonight the skies are bright and clear. Nobody knows exactly where this dance and this music came from, but its origins are Mexican. One of the ways that the tribe is kept alive. There's a tribal herd of cattle, since cattle raising is the major occupation. And the Papagos have the only all-Indian credit union in the country. Angelo McGill makes his living driving the school bus. How about your boys, John and Clement? What do you want to be when you grow up? Clement?
A welder.
A welder? Uh-huh. John?
Mechanic.
You want to be a mechanic when you grow up. I know that another important industry of the Papago women, I know they're famous for it, is the basket weaving, and there's some going on in the house right now. But before we go in, I've always been interested in the construction of these adobe houses. And Silnakia was one of the villages he saw. There are 14 families here, somewhat interlocked with brothers-in-law and stepsisters and grandfathers living side by side. This is Frank Lopez, the ceremonial leader of the village. Here's Angelo McGill and his two boys. John is 11 and Clement is 12. The McGill family is one of the oldest families in the village. If the members of a Papago family aren't actually related to their neighbors, they at least know them extremely well. The life they live is very communal. They do everything together. It has to be. It's clearly... What are they made of, precisely?
Earth.
The earth, yes.
Make it in mud mixed with desert grass and put out to dry. Make them into bricks. They have a form in making bricks. Put out to dry. It'll take about 4 or 5 days to dry, and then they're ready to stack, and then they use them when they are ready to build.
In other words, you take exactly what you have right here, the earth and the grass and the... This is Pima County, Arizona. A part of it, 20 tough miles off what serves as the only road between Tucson and Ajo. The Comobabi Mountains behind me, the saguaro cactus all around, the sandy, useless soil underneath. Who could make a life on it? Well, they have. This is the Papago Indian village of Silnakia, population 52. It doesn't seem that anyone could live in this country, and yet they do and have done for longer than our history has any way of telling us. A Jesuit missionary, Father Kino, came here in 1694.
Discovery 65, the award-winning program for young people with Frank Buxton. Today, the desert people. Discovery visits the Papagos.